Everyone. Thank you for a first great week of getting started in TCH 430. I wanted to take a few moments to kind of look back upon this last week and our first week and getting started in the course and looking forward to the next week. Before I get too far into thinking about what we've done last week, I do want to take a moment to remind you that if you have not already done so, to make sure that you watch my last video in the course overview page. That might answer some of the questions that you may have about just the setup of the class itself. But to get started in terms of thinking about this past week and as we're wrapping up, I wanted to start by looking back at our conversations and tell you, first of all, how much I've enjoyed reading through some of the ideas that you've raised in your conversation circles. This is a big class, and those conversation circles are going to be really important and vital for you to start feeling like you have a place in the class and that you have some people that you can always go to when you have questions, aside from me, of course. Obviously, you're welcome to ask anybody in the course questions, but I've found that in online classes, especially in large ones such as this, that it's often important to create a smaller group within the larger class that you get to know and feel more comfortable with. So thank you for getting started with that. I'm already seeing some great conversations. As you probably noticed or may have not noticed, I did send out a message in our general channel in Slack to kind of highlight some of the things that I was seeing in the conversations. So I wanted to take a couple of moments just to kind of walk through those ideas and then invite you to continue exploring those on your own. So let me get this to the minimal view and go here. So I created this infographic using canva.com. If you've not used this, it's a great tool to create lots of visual displays. It might be something that you think about using this week, and we'll talk about that in a little while. But this week's question was, does theory matter? And so as I was reading across your conversations in all 9 rooms, I was seeing lots of different things starting to emerge in terms of themes. And so I started to group those here for you and pulled out some of the quotes that really struck me as I was reading. I'm not going to go through all these quotes, but I invite you all to go through and read what your classmates had to say, and then maybe check out their conversations and see where these quotes were in context of what they were talking about. The more you look at other conversations, the more you're going to get out of the class. But some of the main ideas that I was pulling out of this conversation around theory and whether or not theory matters were this idea that awareness matters and that we really need to be aware of our instruction. We need to be aware of our teaching style, our students' learning styles, and why we're doing what we're doing. So that was the first thing I thought of. Another thing that struck me was this idea of the need for teachers as well as students to get uncomfortable. We learn when we're discomforted. If we're always comfortable, we're not learning new things. So I thought that was an interesting idea that was raised. The idea of building empathy came up a time or two, and this idea of Nell Noddings and her ethics of caring and her theory of care in the classroom were important. I think that came up in circle 1 or 2, but obviously more than one circle, such as when Mallory raised it in circle 4. Be curious is another idea that came around, and I think that's a great suggestion, is to think about what makes us curious, what makes us ask questions. Be reflective and critical. Always think about why we're doing what we're doing, and be critical. Don't just jump on somebody else's idea because they sound smart, but really think about, does that actually align to what I believe and what my own practices align to? Consider your environment. Who are your kids that you're working with? What are the things that we can do to be responsive to the environments, both in school and out of school? And then finally, remember the water. And depending on how you defined the water in your discussion, this could be a good thing or a bad thing. But as Zachary said, and I did not quote this here, be the water. And that's something to think about. So again, I would remind you to go back and look through these conversations and see if anything strikes a chord with you, like these struck a chord with me. The more reflective we are, the more we get out of the class. So let's go ahead and think about this idea, does theory matter? And I thought I would just start and briefly talk about whether or not I feel theory matters. And I think this is a complicated question, and my response would be that if we're just doing theory for theory's sake, if we're thinking about theory as something removed from the classroom that we find in the books that we studied in our undergraduate or graduate classes and it doesn't apply to us, then theory doesn't matter, okay? But I do think theory matters in terms of helping us have constructs and ideas to build our own thinking around, and helps serve as a touchstone as to, are we doing what we really think is best for kids? I know that sometimes I often think about, in terms of my own paradigm of learning, which I'm asking you all to examine this week, I think about myself primarily as a constructivist, although as some of you said in your discussions, that can change depending on the needs of my students. But most of the time, I do believe that when students construct their own knowledge, it has more meaning to them and it will last longer. But there are times in my practice that I may find myself not doing things in a constructivist way. And so remembering the theory behind that and returning to that as a touchstone to help me reflect and refine my practice, I think is an important thing. And I invite all of you to do that as well. And that's why we're talking about learning paradigms this week, and we're building on this idea of theory. I really want you to get in touch with, what paradigm do you primarily fall within? What do you believe when you think about learning? What is learning to you? And so for this week, you're going to be really exploring that idea in your conversation circles. You are also going to be constructing a visual metaphor of learning and trying to show us through some sort of visual way what you think learning means. You'll see some examples on the website, on the wiki. Some of them are done in video. It could be a video, it could be an image. There are lots of different ways you can create this visual metaphor. I even started hearing kernels of these visual metaphors as I was reading some of the discussions. For example, I know that someone had posted the idea of a marigold. I think it was a video as well. That's definitely something that could be a starting point as you think about your own paradigm of learning and how you can visualize that for the rest of us. So I think this will be an exciting challenge. I look forward to seeing what you all come up with. And again, I have provided examples on the wiki to help you think this through. A couple of other more technical things I wanted to make sure that we were thinking about as we go through and we're getting used to how the course is structured. There are a couple of really distinct spaces that we'll be posting things. The first will be our personal portfolios. You always can access that through the sidebar. And this will take you to your list of all the names where you can find your own personal portfolio. I know many of you, especially if you had me in class before, know how to work a wiki page and to add something to it. I saw that you were successful in adding images, so I'm not very concerned about that with all of you. I also saw that you were able to create links to other pages, which I will invite you to do as you create your learning paradigm on your personal portfolio. Please don't just continue to add things to one page, because it becomes messier for people to look through and harder to comment and discuss around. So for every activity that we do, if you can create a link to that activity and make sure you title that with your own name, that would be helpful for the rest of us as we're looking through some of the ideas that you've come up with. If you want to embed other multimedia or video in your page, though, I wanted to make sure to show you how to do that. It's really actually very simple as well. So if you look at Edit here, if you want to insert a video, the easiest way to do that is to first upload your video to YouTube. And then when you do upload that video to YouTube, make sure that you set it as either public, which most of us don't necessarily want our videos public, or unlisted. And if it's unlisted, that means anybody with the link can find it. If you set it as private, nobody, not even those of us who you've said can watch it, Only you can watch it. So make sure you set your video to unlisted. If you embed a video, then all you have to do after you get it up to YouTube is go over here to the YouTube link under Insert Video, YouTube. And there you can insert the actual URL for the video and hit Next, and it will embed right into your site. It's that easy. If you want to insert any other kind of multimedia, that's also very easy, but you do that through HTML JavaScript, which is down here. Similar to YouTube, you're going to paste in what we call the embed code in this box. And to find the embed code, all you have to do is go Share and find the embed code, and that will pop up for you. I would also just click Allow JavaScript because this seems to get around some of the glitches that some of the different embed codes have. Hit Next, and then it will automatically embed in your page as well. So hopefully that will answer any questions that you might have about embedding anything into your personal portfolio. Personal portfolios exist as a learning space for all of us. It's a way to make your thinking public to the rest of the class, a way for you to spark conversations with each other. I encourage you to take time here and there when you have the time to look and see what some of the others are in the class are doing, especially the ones in your conversation circles. 43 people, it might be hard to go through everybody's pages all the time, but if you can go through the people in your circles and just see what they're doing, that would be great, and I think that would help you grow as well, and you can give them feedback through the comments feature. So again, anything that we're doing, like the weekly activities, will be put on your personal portfolio page. Now you also, I'm asking this week, and we're starting to launch that this week, you're creating your own, if we go to this learning challenge, you're creating your own website, okay? The Connected and Reflective Educator website. Now this one is different than the personal portfolio because this is a public space where I want you to start making some of your learning and the learning that you're thinking about in this class public, where others can find your ideas and interact with you in a larger way. This is an extension of your PLN, the PLN that you started in TCH 401, and you may have continued in other ways in some of the other tech classes, depending on the class itself. But in this way, you're going to be creating at least 5 entries over the course of the semester that really ask you to reflect and think upon some of the ideas that we've done. Now, this week you're going to create the visual metaphor that I referred to earlier. You can always take that metaphor, even though it's something that you have posted on your personal page, and make it into a longer blog entry and post it on your personal, your Reflective Educator website as well. In that case, you would use it to introduce the larger public to your thinking about learning and invite others to converse with you about some of those ideas. So there are often ways that you can kind of use what we're doing in weekly activities and embed them into some and develop them a little bit more into some of the larger activities. But again, this is something that's public. This is something that I want you to really invite others to look at, maybe others in your school. You could tweet it out on Twitter, get other people to really start engaging with some of your ideas. And in that way, you'll start building your personal learning network. I'm also going to take time throughout the semester to tweet out some of the blogs that I'm seeing. I'll highlight different blogs and tweet them out into my own personal learning network. And in that way, encourage others to follow your blogs as well. Let's see. So a couple of other loose ends before I go. First of all, if you did not already see, I have posted in the course overview page the schedule. I was a little quicker than I thought I might be. I think the snow day yesterday, even though I didn't stay inside all day, definitely helped me get this going. But if you hit the course calendar presentation schedule, this will show you the topic that you have been assigned to present on with your partner or partners over the semester. You'll see here that if it's a week that we have more than one topic we're exploring, such as week 5 when we're looking at both Triple E and SAMR, after the names it tells you which of the theories or standards that you're going to be looking at. And then on the due date, this is the due date to have your presentation to me. And then I will give you the presentation, some feedback before we post it for the rest of the class to see. In addition to that, I am also going to have a Google Doc that I will share in this week's PlayBuzz as well, farther down this list. And this is to help you all track your progress towards each of the badges. So when you access that Google Doc, if you could please make a copy of it and then title it with your name and then share it with me, and all those instructions are below. That will help both of us keep better track of these badges, since most of these badges are extended learning opportunities throughout the semester, so you can kind of see where you're at. Other than that, that's what I see happening this week. I hope you have a good one.